Okie dokie. All right. Facebook, YouTube. We are live. Okay. Bava Basra, you test Ahmed Bays. This is like what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down. 7. Yeah. 6, 7 lines down. Ves meraglaim and akais gemot tvachim. Rabba bar bar Chana. Sagt Rabba bar bar Chana. It's okay to urinate next to your friend's wall. Great. Meanwhile, Facebook is generating auto captions. This is going to show up in random people's feeds. Lovely. And I will cut off for Ahab when he urinates against the wall. Gathered together and strengthened among Israel. Okay. It's Rashi. Mashtin Bikir, when he urinates against the wall. So that's obviously normal. Okay. And you have to distance urine from someone else's wall 3 tfachim. So definitely don't urinate on someone's wall. And that's talking about dumping it out en masse. Wastewater. A full urinal, and he dumps it out there. Tashma la yital adam mayim b'tzad kaso shechaveira elam kenerchek mina gimel tfachem. Hasanami b'shayfchen. Okay, Marshall takes this out. Tashma li yashtan adam mayim b'tzad kaso shechaveira elam kenerchek mina gimel tfachem. This is kind of explicit. Don't urinate. It doesn't say to distance meraglayim from a wall, in which case you could say it's talking about dumping out a full urinal. It's talking about mashtin mamish. Rashi says layashtin like a lokamila but mashtin mamish. Vedvar more than the Brisa continues because the levanim, a wall made out of mud bricks. Because the levanim, Rashi says shem shall titch and isyabshu b'cham v'im meikim achmas hamayim, so they will dissolve. But if it's a stone wall, you just have to be far enough away not to damage. How much? A tefach. Because you're weakening the ground near it, undermining it. And if it's bedrock under it, if it's built on bedrock, mutter. If it's sunma, guys, as a boni besela to lekala mechosh. The tishtu shakarka mutter samach mamish. I say fakai because alavonim. Tiyuvta drabba barbarchana. Tiyuvta. But Rabbi Barbarchana Kragomer. But wait, he's talking. He has a pasuk. Even something which typically would urinate on a wall won't be left for the house of Acha. What is that? A dog. Okay. Okay. Now we're going to start the sugya of a rakik and a chalain. I wasn't really planning on doing major visuals tonight, but let's see. Omar Rabbi Tuvi bar Kisna Omar Shmuel. After Tuvi bar Kisna b'shem Shmuel. Rakik enoi mimai b'chalain. Let's just do this literally for now. A wafer doesn't diminish in a window. Whoa, that's Rashi. Rakik sufkanin yes. Charora daka viraka, a thin, soft wafer. I think calling it a waffle would be a fair translation. That is between two houses. And the window is a tefach by a tefach. And there's a dead person in one of the houses. Inside Shani. And Tuma is bursting through the tefach wide hole into the other side. Ein rokik zemimai chiurai. The wafer that's stuffed in the window is not going to diminish the size of the opening that we would consider to be less than tefach by tefach. Because since it's edible, it's not going to actually leave it there. I wonder if I still have my dead ogre from long ago. Oh, I do. Okay, well, in that case, we are definitely going to use this visual. So we're going to do this. Hey, oops, try that again. All right, as I shrink myself to make room for the case over here. Oh, this is moving it, not shrinking it. Okay, here we go. Boing. Boing. And I guess we'll move ourselves here. Gewaldig. Okay, so this is from long ago when we had Oig Melech HaBashan dead in a house, the Inyan Lahitzi Toma in Erevin, I believe. But we're just going to use him. So now we have this house, and we have an adjacent house without Oig in it. And we have a window in between the houses that is going to be a tefach by a tefach. No, the truth is, it's going to be so small we can't even see it, right? And that's a problem. So maybe we shouldn't be using Oig over here. Maybe we're going to have to shrink our dead ogre. And shrink the house that he's in. I think that the best way to do this would be like this. And I'm assuming that there's going to be a roof on the house, but we're not going to actually do a roof here because we want to see the action. So let's pretend there's a roof. And we're going to, now let's make a window over here. It's still going to be very small, vanishingly small. Oh. Now I know what happened before. Okay, so here's our window. And we're going to make this window be, oh man, going all the way through. A. Up, and now we can see all the way through to the house with the mace in it. Hey, that was supposed to be a cool camera effect. Where's the dead ogre? Ah, we have failed. Okay. Oh, no wonder we failed. What on earth is going on over here? Oh my gosh. What have I done? Wait, did this work? Yes, okay, we did it. So we actually now have a hole in between the houses that is a Pesach Tefach, and there's going to be a waffly, wafery thingy in the window. Let's give it a good waffly, wafery color. All right, so we're going to say that it is not Mima'ed B'chalain. We're saying that it is not going to be diminishing the shear, the tumah that's going in there. Okay. Frak the Gemara, my irya rakik. What was so schwer about something else that you specified a wafer? A thin, waffly thing. Afilu avanami la, afilu avanami. Even if it was thick, it wouldn't block the tumah. So why would you say something thin doesn't block tumah, which would imply something thick does, if that's not true? And for the Gemara, let me buy Amar, it's saying, no, not even that. Let me buy Ava. We don't even need to say a thick one, which doesn't get yucked by being there. A thicker wafer, a thicker edible cake biscuit is going to be edible after being left there in the wall. So definitely it's not going to be left there. And because it's not going to be abandoned there, it's going to still bring the tumah through. Avarakik to mimis, but something very thin, which will get yucky being there. Ema betui mavtile. Maybe he'll end up, you might say that the guy will end up leaving it there, so therefore it's not a chatzitza. No, therefore it is a chatzitza. Kamash mala. And so Rashi avarakik to mimis, mitech shudak, v'chuchakaisam mirat v'yimat. Because it's thin and it gets moist in the wall, nimis, it gets yucked. Fact the Gemara, there's other reasons why it wouldn't block tumah. It is susceptible to tumah. It's food. Anything that can become tumah can't block tumah because it becomes tumah and then the tumah goes right through. Which the Gemara answers, Shenilas b'mei peiros. It actually is not makabel tumah because it was made out of grain that had never gotten wet since harvest, and it kneaded with apple juice or something like that, and therefore, because it wasn't one of the 7 official liquids, it's not going to be machshir at makabel tumah. ואין מקבל טומאה אלא בלי הכשר משקה, קוראים משקה כגון מים ויין וחלב. Okay. Frek the Gemara, Meisvei. We have a kasha from. Is this a Mishnah and always? Kupa Malaya Teven. If you have a container full of straw, the chavis Malaya Garai, or a chavis would be like a clay container. Malaya grace full of dried figs. Hamunachim Bachalain that are in the window and blocking it off, but do we consider it a blockage? Ryan, we see. So we say, forget the box, forget the container. Let's see if the teven itself or the gerges themselves could be chaytzitz. Chavis malik gerges to enim yaveshim going shleich shur. Koshi not lo kuba v'chavis v'chaylen teven the gerges lama. If they ask when chaytzitz, if they ask when chaytzitz, then shachavis akova and chaytzitz, if they shem kablan toma. The container is makabel tumah, so it is like it's not there. So now, theoretically, if it wasn't there actually, would the figs fall? If so, the tumah goes through. Otherwise, it doesn't go through. And the Gemara's kasha is, we're asking on Tumi Bar Kisna Mar Shmuel that there's a use for straw So just because not makabel tumah, I should still let the tumah through because he's going to take it out and feed his animal. To which we have to be madchik and say, no, that is talking about straw that's not edible for animals. Bisarya, it's spoiled, rotten. Sarya nirkav. Chazi latina. You can make clay out of it. This bait kites, it has thorns on it. And Rashi says the way they would make this kind of clay would be by stomping it. This bait kites, Rashi, vehe, rhymes in braglay and betit. They would be stomping. What's they're doing? Okay. Frek the Gemara, chazi lahasaka, but you can, even if it's thorny, you can still use it for kindling, which the Gemara says, b'matunta, it's wet. Chazi lasik gadol, you can still use it to add fuel to a very large fire, where everything else would be ignited and it would dehydrate and therefore contribute to the fire eventually. Which the Gemara that says, hesek gadol ishchiach, that's not common, and therefore there will be a reason why it remains there, and it is batal. What about the second part of that case? That was the straw. What about the dried figs? The dried figs are definitely something that is fit for him. Amar Shmuel b'shehitrifu. They got wormed. They were wormy. Correct the Gemara, but wait a minute. This container that the figs are in, what's the situation with it? Because we're talking about a clay container. So here, I'm going to get rid of the wafer in our case over here and replace it with a container. I'm feeling like maybe I should have just made the hole bigger and plugged it. Oops. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that's cool. Okay. So now we have a container that's almost filling the window. And here it is. It's a chavis. Let's give it its own distinctive color. And it's full of figs. And we're saying that when it is in this window, it's not going to block the tumah. What have I done? I think I forgot to make a separate bottom for this kli, and in this specific case, right, the bottom is going to be very important to give. It's where you need to give it a teich. So let's just bottomize it as opposed to low bottomizing it. And now, hey. Yeah. Okay, here we are. So now we have this container, and we want to know which way it's inside of this windowsill. This windowsill is too thick for our case. I'm gonna thin it. This in between space. So now we're gonna have this container in here. Now you'll notice that right now the back side of it is what's pointing towards the place where the body is. So, what's the situation with this chavetz, this container? If its mouth is facing the outside, it itself should be blocking the tomei fumilabar tzad letzad habayish enemes b'saychai. So the mouth is facing the house that doesn't have the corpse in it. It itself should be what's blocking tuma. That because it's made out of chares, clay, and a kli chares cannot become tamei from the back. Which Gemara says, Ella, leitzricha de puma ligav. Okay, fine. So don't say that it's facing that way. Say that it's facing the direction of the maze. If you want, I could say that it's facing outwards. Tuma can't get in. Well, yeah, that would be if it was clay. But why didn't that work? Let's try that again. There. It's metallic. Although that is kind of a weird metallic colors. Let's get something that looks more convincingly metal. What's this going to look like? Yeah, that looks very metal. Okay. Meisvei, frek the Gemara, Sovin shetolshon vinichan bachalon. If a guy pulled out weeds and stuffed them into a windowsill, or they grew by themselves in the windowsill. And patches. She'ein ben shalish al shalish that aren't large enough to be makabel tumah. That aren't even 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim. I think it's tvachim. Is it tbais or tvachim? I think it's tvachim. So Rashi she'ein b'shalish al shalish she'ein makabel tumah. V'ha'ever v'abasar amdu dalin b'behema uv'chaya. Or yuck, a limb or flesh of an animal that is detached but not completely. Hamdul dalin shetlushin mu'ur mitzvahs v'avema minis etzlachlen ve'ever munach alachlem etam v'reveretem mitam and tumas eichlem bimkaim and shechan echsher ve'elo yachsheru. So they are not huksh the kabel toma. V'oiv sheshacham achalain, or a bird that made a nest in the windowsill. V'oivid keichavim, an idolater. Or an 8-month baby, which in the time of the Gemara we're assuming is not alive or dead. V'hamelach, salt to klicheres, an earthenware container. V'sefer Torah, kula mematen b'chaloin. Hamelach ha'mekabel toma d'lavei chalu b'an pei nafshei. Salt isn't edible alone. Uklicheres ha'chayil v'tzad ha'yel ha'toma. So what is not going to block Toma? Things that are going to melt, I think. Aval hashalek, I'm not sure that's the reason actually. Aval hashalek, snow, barad, hail, glid, frost, kfar. What's the difference between glid and kfar? Probably the difference between ice and frost. V'amayim and water, kulan ememot and bachalain, they're not going to block it. Oh, Rashi says they melt. And also, even if the water's in a container, because it can't stay in its place by itself. And Golsa, Akfar, Grislon, Haglid Karach Lavan She'enai Sheleg. Karach Lavan She'enai Sheleg. Sleet. Frek the Gemara from all these things. The weeds that he put there or that grew there are something he could feed to an animal. So why is it batel? Which Gemara answers, it's toxic. Mandagares be arzepas atayashu kornishon lefachem. It's kind of funny. Rashi says if your girsa is arzepasa, you're wrong because that is a blacksmith mallet. So rather, girsa Rashi is afrizasa, which Rashi says is toxic. I want to see if that is on my list of plants and stuff. I'm curious to see if I have that. Let's see. Afrizasa. And if we don't have it, the question is, why not? Here we go. Aleph Lamed. Nope. It's not on the list. Boo. We're going to have to add this. Okay. Afrizasa. Okay. Zok the Gemara weiter. Aisha Olamealein, or weeds that grew by themselves. So they're attached. Kevan to Kashla Kaisa, because that's bad for the wall. Shakala will take them away. My Rabbi, because of Chorva. Rabbi says talking about the wall is anyways ruined. Kevan to Kashla Kaisa, Shemachlidin, I say, I mean, Bemastis and Shakala. Nope, it's the walls anyways are ruined. Even if it is not a rune, they're in the window, but they're not like a vine that's growing on the wall. They're coming from a plant that's away from the window. So that's not something which is going to ruin the wall. That's the answer of Rav Papa, as opposed to Rabbah. Matlaini's patches, chazule kriya delvusha. You use them to patch clothing. Twitch the Gemara, chazule kriya, la says talo. I make a patch. Twitch the Gemara answers bismichta, when it's overly thick. Bismichta Rashi says obvious midai. Chazula umna, they can be used by an umna Rashi. Yikes, la umna, a blood letter. Umna the make us down kanech amaka. The thick rags are good for a blood letter to wipe off the incision. Beriska. It's sharp. It would tear the skin, I think. Beriska shumisare. Frack the Gemara. What on earth? Iberiska shim ben shalosh shalosh shim ben arba mi boile. What do you mean that if it's more than 3 by 3, it would be makabel tuma? No, it would not if it's like harsh like that. And ben arbal or mi boile. She's aishir shel sak. Because if you're talking about like sackcloth type stuff, then it ought to be 4 by 4. No, says the Gemara. Ke'ein riska. We're not talking about where it actually is sackcloth, just sackcloth fish. So still 3 by 3. Or the animal has a limb which is dangling in the window. Arka, won't it run away v'azla and go? Bikshura, it's tied. Shachit la. Maybe he will shecht it, but the animal is a behemoth tmei, like a donkey. Maybe he'll sell it to someone not Jewish, but chusha, it's weak. Pasik, maybe he'll chop it up, and throw it to the dogs. To which the Gemara says he wouldn't, because kevon de ikatzar balechai and le'avid. That would be animal abuse. He wouldn't do that. Okay. And a bird in the windowsill, parach vazil, won't it fly away? Because sure, it's tied. Shachet lay, maybe he'll shechte it, but tame, it's not kosher. Mazmane the nachri, he'll sell some not Jewish, but kol nisa if kochush mo'edin roy l'shum adam. Rashi says it's a very, very bony bird without meat. I'm not sure what kind of bird that is. Yoev leili yanuka. Why not give it to a child? B'misareit, it scratches. Kalnisa loy misarta. You said it's the kind of this pathetic bird. Those don't scratch. Ke'en kalnisa, a scratchy bird that is like a kalnisa. Ke'en kalnisa kachosh ke'kalnisa v'misareit. V'vekechavim sheyashav b'chalain, or someone not Jewish sitting in the window. Kayvazil, go away. Bekafus, he's tied there. Basically, to defend Shmuel's memory, we're making wild ukimtas. Maybe someone else will come and untie him. Bimitzayra, he's a leper. Another leper will do it. Okay, fine. He's been imprisoned there by order of the king. No one's going to take him out. This baby, not dead or alive, 8 months. Asya ime Daryale, his mother will bear him away. B'Shabbos, it's Shabbos. The Tanya ben Shmeina reyukev and v'also tatale b'Shabbos. Aval imay shaycha alav u'meini kasim ibnei asakana. For herself, I think. That's interesting because after Shabbos ends, you could take him away, but during Shabbos, it's going to be blocking Terma. I wonder if it's in a very cold place, if ice then would block. That's not going to melt. Melach chazyale, you can eat the salt. Bimri rasa, it's bitter. Chazyale, you can use it to salt thing. The isba kaitzi. It has thorns in it. So you wouldn't be using it for hide leather working. But it's bad for the wall, so we'll take it away. But it's on a piece of pottery. We'll take it away. But we're answering it's on pottery. So let the pottery itself be what's blocking Tumah, turning the page to Chav Mebez. Part of the kasha that the clay itself should get in the way because it's not big enough. It's like it just ain't there. It's non cheres Rashi Shabbos in Bain Patzim Lachaveroi. This is the answer. No, I said this wrong. It's let the clay thing itself get in the way. No. The lesba shiura, it's too small, and it's not. It's vavi come on to lesa. Rashi's like it's not there, but it's not. Cheres, how large would a piece of pottery have to be chayv for bringing it out on Shabbos? Kalit in bein patzim lachavera, enough to put it in between two, like in between like a window frame. Rashi says Cheres and so Shabbos kalit in bein patzim lachavera or pitzim. We had this before paratz es pitzim of pitzim echaloin is bekaisel marchikin zemizeh berechav achaloin nikanis ha'ira ben kol echad v'yachad. But it's in b'chaim elamata lamala cheres racha ben telazeh b'toch b'teva cheres av avisham ke'evan. Why can't he use an earthenware vessel? Why would that block? He can use it. Dimitanif. It's yucky. Chazila umna. Bloodletter can use it. Yummy. Diminka. If it has a hole in it. Sefer Torah chazila mikra. You can use Sefer Torah for learning Torah. Bibali. It's worn out. Baba you can isa. Then you have to properly bury it. Baba you can isa misalke liganzai. Let that be its place where it's buried away. Wow, did Shmuel survive? I mean, he had to do a lot of ukimtais, but it looks like we're moving on. Oh, Marav. You can make a wall out of anything except for salt and fat. Salt scatters and fat melts. Shmuel says you can even make a wall with salt. What is this? What is this wall for? For Shabbos? For like for an Eruv or for separating Kilayim? Papa say Rabbi Shmuel not arguing. It's the rightness. One is talking about the Sidomi salt and it's thick and big, and you can make a pillar of salt out of it. And the other one is the more regular salt. Isteroikness is a big word for regular salt. I'm not sure what it means. And now that Rabbi said that you can use 2 stacks of salt with a heavy beam on top of them because the salt supports the beam and the beam compresses the salt. So that which Rav said you can't make a mechitza out of salt. Shmuel says you can, maybe some normal salt. This Rav's talking about when it's by itself, and Shmuel's talking about where there's a beam on it. Period. Okay. have to separate, you have to distance millstones from a wall. My time mishum tiraya, the vibrations of it, damaging the wall. V'atanya. But we have a brisa which says v'shal chamor, and if they are grindstones of a donkey, v'shal chamor shal chamor, shloishim minutes streibel shen arba min hakeles, it's streibel hu moshe v'rechaim shebesech klipas ha'etche keren sarka. And keles yafar kesesh keren troy warrior. Troy more. Okay, and hasa ma'tiria iko. What vibration is there? Ma'tiria iko rechaim katan v'kalame ve'enakar kamarid begil gula. It's not shaking things up. Elamishum kola. Rather, it's because of the noise. And therefore, what? I think it's saying the sound vibrations would be a problem. Shum kola. She says yesh mefarshim kola hanagas hachamor. That those who explain it's the sound of trying to lead the donkey. Yesh mefarshim kola rechaim, or the noise of the millstones themselves. So he said they have to have distance an oven 3 from the bottom, which is 4 from the top. We see that the bottom is an extra tefach, and if someone sells an oven less than that, we now know that that is defective, that is breaking the rules. One more Mishnah. You can't have an stove in your house. I mean, if the guy wants to burn down his own house, he's allowed to, right? So what are we talking about here? You're saying you're not allowed to in your own home? I need 4 amais, and close to 8 feet above the fire. If he has a fire in an upper story, you have to have a floor under it of ma'aziva is clay, plaster, 3 tvachim thick. Uvikira, and if it's a smaller contained stove, tefach. If he damages, he has to pay for it, even though he did these precautions. Rabbi Shimon no. Rabbi Shimon says no. Like the whole point of these numbers and distancings, Eloshim Hizik Potter Milashalim, is because if you follow the rules, you're not going to be chayet. So Istreich belas tiach karka gimel tvachim shleitivar tikra tachtoina shel aliyah val gabav dalet amos uvakira maziva tafach afi kli chares sheshayftim kedeira al chalala v'inaisim b'seicha es a gadol k'mesh oisim batanur v'im hizik achar shayu sham goshuin alalu mishalim ashezik afikim ma'akben alav hashchenim lachik b'choshuin alalu shemiyadik batem ve'in loy malashalim. Even though he's going to have to pay for damages, the neighbors can still compel him to follow the fire safety rules because, what if, interesting, Rashi says, because what if he can't pay? How about because they don't want to get burned? A guy can't open up a bakery shop, or a dye place, under someone else's storage place. And we had said before, Dira Shiny, that you could open it if the guy doesn't have a storage house there. Or a cattle house, wine is okay, just not a cattle house. If it's a wine storage house that's opened up above, then you could have the first 2 things, the bakery or the dye place, but not a Refes Bakar. Yes? Otherwise, under the first 2 are smoke, and the second one is stench. We had said that underneath a tanner you need 3 tvachim, underneath a kira you only need you only need one tefach. I have a brisa which has an oven is 4, a kira is 3. That's talking about a professional baker's one. The tanur di done, because our oven, our bigger oven, ki kira denach dummy. Our big oven is like a baker's small oven. In fact, the Rashi v'atanya le'inyan mida ba'aliyah b'taner arba'a maziv l'tachto v'kira shleisha b'tanach toimin shemisikin asay tomi v'chein akira b'kiras nach toimin taner didanti di'oh b'taner d'masisin shir gemot tvachem k'kira d'nach toimin dami. Fine. Lo yiftach adam chanus. You can't open things underneath someone else's storage place. Tana. We have taught, we had this before. If a guy opens up a cattle house and then someone else wants to do a storage house above that, well, it's a little late. You can't tell the guy to get rid of what he has already. Question. What if it wasn't a storage house yet, but is being prepped for one? Kibade, he swept it for rebates and washed the floor to store stuff there, but didn't store it yet. And then the other guy wants to open up a cattle house. Mahu. What if he increased the windows? Banach Sadra. Oh, Banamahu. Rashi. Kivivibates Gaga. What is father doing here? Boo. Have you could if the guy was adding windows to the upper story because he's going to be storing grain there. What if the guy actually built up a whole thing on top of his house? The other guy's house, I guess, but he owns that area. Mahu take. And Rashi says, if you want to say adding windows is not enough, when the whole building is for that purpose, maybe that's more. Teku. More since we're going to have to let it stand. We don't know. Rav Huna, son of Rav Yeshua, asked what about pomegranate? Not in that order. Dates and pomegranates, take. Rashi says, the guy started storing odds and ends like fruits there. Dates and pomegranates. Is that already an Eitzer or not? Take. Interesting. But wine is okay to have a bakery or a dye place under it. There's not a refes bucker because that's stench. It's okay with wine because it's actually improving it. But not a cattle house, which makes it stinky. Rav Yosef says, our wine. Boo. Even a candle's smoke would be hard for it, a regular flame. Rav Sheshes. The aspasta grefes bakar damya. So Rashi says, "Vaydidan yain shlana ilu ashan oilim in anerkash le aspasta shachas shel tvua." Having shachas shel tvua. Oh, if you cut wheat early, wheatgrass, I think, and you let the wheat continue growing, but now you have gathered this wheatgrass stuff, and you're storing it. That's bad, and you can't do it under someone else's wine because Rashi says because it's wet. It gets warmed and it stinks, and that would also ruin the wine. All right, and we're going to stop here. Bottom chaf from the bays. Shkayach.